Blank Game Week 34 is here, and we are going to be looking at the best free hit team you can make, along with players to buy and new fixture runs going into the end of the season. So make sure you like and subscribe, and let's get right into the video. Now, what we'll do first is look at the free hit team, then look at the fixture difficulty rating for all the clubs in the league, and then we will look at the players to buy. So free hit wise, let's get started in the defense. I think it's obvious you want at least 2 Arsenal defenders. Now, call me crazy, but home to Newcastle looks like a very, very easy fixture these days. I don't think anyone can disagree with me there. They look horribly off form and they've got a lot of key players injured. So I'm choosing David Raya and Gabriel for the 2 Arsenal defenders. Normally, I don't like David Raya. I like going for another Arsenal defender because Raya is sort of a 2 or 6 point man. But the other defenders in this team are just way too important, in my humble opinion. Gabriel is a no-brainer. I don't think anyone is going to be going without him, free hit or no free hit. There's no point going without him if you're on free hit. I don't care if you can choose any defender in the game. He is your #1 priority. Along with Gabriel in the defence, we have Van Dijk, another no-brainer, one of the easiest fixtures of any team this game week. And even though Liverpool look a bit off form, Van Dijk's been a really big goal threat recently. He's great for defcons, obviously reliable for minutes, and the clean sheet potential is quite high as well because Palace look far from their best, pretty much the entire season. Their key players, they're rebelling, they're getting injured, the manager's leaving. It seems like most of the important, characters, most important characters in the team have sort of given up. They don't really care anymore. So I think Van Dijk could be in for a good haul here. Then we have Mukiel, arguably the best player in FPL history to be priced at 4 million at the beginning of the season. I would say I don't know what FPL headquarters were thinking, but then again, if it were me, I would never have heard of this Mukiel guy. I probably would have priced him at 4 million as well. But with the addition of defcons, I think that was foolish. Great for defcons, always starting every game. Seems to get a goal involvement every other game, which is ridiculous for someone so cheap. So yeah, if you go without Mukiel, you could go to a different Sunderland defender. Forest are much better defensively than going forward. They're not great at attacking, which makes it a great fixture for any Sunderland defender, especially Mukiel. Now, we've actually gone with a midfield 5, and it was hard choosing the final attack on this team. And I'm going to start with him here now, Somerville. Before he got injured, he was fantastic. He was a great player to own. Now he's back and he's got a good fixture. I think he's going to be a great differential. But like I said, he was the last choice player in this starting 11. You could go Saliba, but I think Somerville just edges it for me because before his injury, he was on really good form and West Ham are improving a lot. So he's here, but yeah, could interchange with anyone on the bench. We have Bruno Fernandes coming in as the captain of this team. I don't think anyone is surprised, even though home to Brentford isn't that easy. Bruno is just on fire right now. Man United were awful last game away to Chelsea. They didn't deserve anything, but Bruno somehow created an assist out of nothing once again. That's what he does. It's impossible for him to blank at the moment. So a player you really don't want to miss out on, and I don't think anyone would disagree with me there. In the midfield here, you can see we continue the Liverpool player trend. We have 2 Liverpool midfielders. Now, it's not ideal, especially with the Liverpool attack being so inconsistent and none of their players being on amazing form. I didn't really know who else to put here. Like I said, Liverpool have a really good fixture and I do believe they will score a few goals. They're a very strong attack, and Salah and Wirtz are probably the only 2 Liverpool attackers where you can say are fairly reliable for minutes, but even then they're not super reliable. Salah, he's got penalties, he's on some set pieces, he's in general historically a great FPL asset, and he has done all right this season. He's got a decent amount of assists, he's on penalties, so there's a decent chance he could do well. But if you don't believe in it, I do understand this one. Me personally, I just don't think there's a better option. And if you can afford it, you may as well go for him. Florian Wirtz is a little more reliable. He's safer. The ceiling isn't as high. I feel like Salah could absolutely run wild in any game. But Wirtz is just a safe option. Someone, who's probably going to start. Someone who could score, could get an assist. Standard safe option. Harry Wilson comes in to finish off this midfield. Home to Aston Villa isn't so bad. Aston Villa, when they play away, are quite a poor defence. And Wilson is obviously the best Fulham attacker to take advantage of this fixture. So on paper, while it's a grey fixture, not a green fixture, there is so much potential for Harry Wilson to get a monster haul here. It just depends whether he feels like it, because sometimes Fulham just have no offensive threat whatsoever. In the front 2, we have what I would say, are 2 really strong players. Jared Bowen, he is a forward with quite bad goal threat, but he's been taking the penalties for West Ham, and his creative potential, the amount of assists he's getting, is ridiculous. He's actually allergic to blanking as well. If you count defcons, a 4-pointer as a return, then he's blanked twice in the last 10 games, and he's got a couple double-digit hauls in there as well. To me, Jared Bowen is someone you can't really debate having. He is someone that should be here. And Brobbey, very similar too. Forest are not great. We've already been through this when we talked about Mukiel. Brobbey is easily the best Sunderland attacker. His underlying data is quite good. Despite Sunderland's attack being quite poor, Brobbey is still hogging all the expected goals, and he's been so clinical all season. So going without him does seem like a fool's errand. I would say these two are arguably two of the best attackers on this team. I wouldn't go without them if I was on free hit. I'd make sure they're locks in my team, because looking at other forwards, who have you actually got? You know, maybe Victor Gyökeres. I can see a Victor Gyökeres shout, but do you really want Victor Gyökeres? I mean, he's just a bit expensive and you wouldn't be able to afford Mohamed Salah. You could look to Solanke, but then again, you want to get points. So you'd look away from Solanke, leaving these two as the best forward options. I mean, let me know in the comments if you disagree, but I think this is the best free hit team. You could exchange Somerville for someone. If you don't want double Liverpool attack, I understand. But in my opinion, my humble opinion, this is the best team you could have on free hit. Also, apologies for how my hair is looking. Please try your best to ignore it. I could go to the bathroom and sort it out, but I can't be bothered. I'm already here recording. Fixture runs. Now, obviously, the teams that are blanking are quite low down. 4 of them especially, they're in the bottom 4. But if you look at Leeds and Manchester City, their fixture runs to close out the season are nothing short of amazing. Now, I'm not saying this means you should pick City players and Leeds players this week over Fulham players, because realistically, you're not going to transfer in someone who's playing against blank. They're probably not going to get any points because there's no game to play. But Leeds, look at their last 4 game weeks, guys. They are ridiculous. You have to own at least some in there. As for Man City, they have a very likely double game week 36. I will say right now, it's a 90% chance they double in 36. I'm not going to guarantee it for you all. You know, take this graph with a grain of salt, but it's almost definite they will, you know, get a double in game week 36, because that game with Crystal Palace still has not been rescheduled, which makes them an amazing team to target. So I couldn't put these guys too low, despite their blank in game week 34. But all the others, they don't have a lot going for them. I mean, the Brighton fixture run is all right, but they blank in game week 34, so they're still at the bottom. Crystal Palace, the other team that double, have an awful fixture run. Like, they have so many away games. In their next 5 fixtures in the Premier League, 4 of them are away. That's not good. I mean, they have home to Everton in there, which is all right. Then their next home game is in game week 38, and that's against the best team in the league. So Crystal Palace in general, like, you wouldn't buy them unless they had a double game week. Even though the double game week includes a fixture away to Man City, it's still an extra chance to get points. You know, it's still a double game week. It's an extra 2 points, you know, point fodder. And if you look at defenders like Richards, who are really good for DEFCONs, or Henderson as a goalkeeper, there's many opportunities for DEFCON points along with the minutes points and save points, which to me makes them a good team to target, despite them having quite a tough fixture run. Looking to the top of this graph though, I have changed home to Newcastle to a green fixture, because Newcastle are terrible and they have been the entire second half of the season. You know, I don't mind Newcastle. I don't have anything against them as a team, except for when they started going on about who's that team we call United. You know, as a United fan, I found that quite offensive. But anyway, enough of my personal vendettas. This Arsenal fixture run is amazing. They don't have a single, even semi-difficult game until game week 38. But even then, away to Crystal Palace isn't that bad. Any Arsenal player could be viable here, or any Arsenal player that's not injured. I mentioned Gyökeres earlier as a potential player on the free hit. Gyökeres, even though he's fairly bad this season, he's still one of the top 5 scorers in the league, and has a really good record against lower sided teams. Like, he's a small game player. When he plays against a team low down in the table, he does well, and he's got easy game after easy game after easy game. Arsenal defenders are obviously great. You want at least 2 Arsenal defenders, maybe 3. Wolves just below them. Avoid Wolves players. They all suck. You don't want to pick them. Please don't be hypnotized by this fixture run. Aston Villa players, obviously you got, you know, the trio of Cash, Rodgers and Watkins. Could all be good if you get them at the right time, but they could also be so lackluster and underwhelming, because Aston Villa, they're fairly underwhelming. Sometimes, even if they score 4 goals, it's Tielemans, Kamara and McGinn who are scoring all the goals, while Watkins and Rodgers are just doing nothing. The good fixture runs sort of end at Sunderland, and even then, their fixture run isn't great, but the next 2 are very good, and then the ones that follow aren't even half bad. So that's why I talk about, you know, the likes of Brobbey and Mukiel in the free hit. They're also pretty good to help you see out the rest of the season. Very cheap players that can help you save money as well. The rest of the teams here are kind of irrelevant. The United fixture run isn't bad. Spurs and Everton aren't really worth talking about, but Everton do end the season quite well. Then you've got the teams, say, in between Leeds and Brighton that we've not talked about yet. A couple teams here are quite low down because they play away to Arsenal. Like, if you look at Newcastle and Fulham, right, their fixture runs aren't that bad, but they have an away to Arsenal game very early on in the process. For example, players like Wilson are amazing if you have bench cover in game week 35. Players like Gordon are amazing if you have bench cover in game week 34. But let's be honest, if you're not on a free hit in game week 34, you probably don't have any bench cover. The only other team worth talking about is Brentford, and I do think Thiago is still good to hold, but apart from that, you should probably ditch or stay away from all your Brentford players because they have the worst fixture run aside from any of the teams that blank in game week 34. Looking at defenders to buy first of all, I do believe defenders are the best to target this game week. We once again have blacklisted players, players that are too high owned to recommend. I would put Gabriel on there. Normally he would be, but his effective ownership is very low. A lot of people may have wildcarded him out or sold him so they could use an effective bench boost. So Gabriel is once again on this list, but we'll talk about him at the end. Richards is here purely because of a double game week and Defcons. That's pretty much it. I don't expect much else to come from this guy. We then go on to Sunderland defenders. We just talked about their fixture run. Looking at the actual team and how they play, their defense is the best aspect. In fact, their attack is bottom 3 in the league looking at expected goals, but their defense is above average. They look quite strong, so the defenders are the ones you want to target. Alderete is good for Defcons and could maybe score a goal here and there. Mukiel is just a better version of Alderete, to be honest. Alderete's here because I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to even double up on Sunderland defenders if you already have Mukiel. Or maybe you can't afford Mukiel, so Alderete is good. In general, yeah, Mukiel is just a better version, but owning both is still not a bad idea. You could pick either one. We then have 2 Arsenal defenders. Now, I'm not sure if Timber's reliable enough to be starting yet. Saliba is an average Newcastle defender. Like, he doesn't normally get Defcons. He's not an amazing threat in the box, but he is capable of it. The fixture run is too good to ignore. Arsenal, the best defence in the league by an absolute landslide, not even close. And with this fixture run, owning any Arsenal defender is great. I just think Saliba is the best one to target because aside from Gabriel right now, to me, he's the only one that's actually reliable for minutes. If it gets to a point where we think Timber's going to be reliable for starting, then maybe we could put him above Saliba. But right now, to me, Saliba is easily the best one to go for. Well, that is, of course, aside from Gabriel, the best FPL asset in the game to own right now. If you sold him recently, make sure you bring him back in. I know a lot of you would have already, owned him or be planning to bring him back in. But this is a wake-up call for those of you who think you can finish off the season without Gabriel. That is a foolish mindset. Make sure you check yourself and sort yourself out because going without him could just be detrimental to your season. Slim pickings, okay. Slim pickings is what I will say about these midfielders. A lot of the good midfielders are blanking in game week 34. Not much you can do about it, but there are still some alright options. We talked about Sunderland already with other Sunderland assets. Diarra is probably not just the best Sunderland midfielder, but probably the only good one. Enzo Lefebvre, I mean, he's alright. He's got penalties, but apart from that, not much else. So Diarra is the one I would recommend, but wouldn't be eager. As for Wilson, if you have bench cover in game week 35 for that away to Arsenal game, he probably becomes an 8 out of 10. Now, me personally, I will, so I'm going to be going there. But if you don't, you're looking at nearly a guaranteed blank because that Arsenal defence is so strong. But like I said earlier, the Fulham fixture run is good for the entirety of the rest of the season, as long as you can get past this game week 35 away to Arsenal. Now we have Sarr, right? The fixture run we already talked about, it's not great, but there is a double game week in there, and I believe Sarr is the best Crystal Palace midfielder to take advantage of this. Even though he did get benched in game week 32, that is a slight worry. And, later after this video comes out, when he plays on Monday, if he gets benched again, then he's obviously a player you should probably avoid. But right now, I still think he's the best Palace midfielder. Only time will tell what happens with the team selection, but I think he'll be fine. And even though there are some tough games in here, Crystal Palace are an explosive team at times, and Sarr is really good on the counter-attack, which means even in tough games, Sarr could come away with something. That is optimistic thinking, but we'll see how it goes. I still think he's an alright player, in general. Everybody rates Sarr. He's not bad. He's just not amazing, And because he has a double, he is here. If he didn't have that double, he would be nowhere near this graph. Now, number 2 will confuse people. I don't normally recommend players like this, But the other Man United midfielders, Mbeumo, Cunha and Ahmad, obviously you've got Bruno, he's blacklisted. Mbeumo, Cunha and Ahmad are all unreliable for minutes and look, for the most part, quite off their game. Even though Cunha scored last game week, he still didn't look great at all. So when looking at Man United midfielders, you're mostly picking between players who are on bad form and players who are rotation risks, which is not what you want. Whereas Casemiro, he's 1 goal away from being United's top scorer as a CDM. So he's clearly got the goal scoring potential, even though the XG is quite low. He's a huge threat from set pieces, and he only needs half a chance. He's also amazing for Defcons, and his expected assists, yeah, they're quite low. But once again, there's still a small chance. 0.2 XGI for a CDM who's quite cheap isn't bad whatsoever, especially when you consider how clinical he's been and how good he is for Defcons. I normally, once again, wouldn't recommend players like Casemiro, But I think looking for a midfielder to help you see out the rest of the season, you know, he's not got a bad run of games. He's clinical from set pieces. He's a fairly good player to own and he's going to save you money. Going, you know, risky with Mbumo or Cunha could work maybe, but Mbumo looks quite poor. I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He does. Ahmad looks all right, but he's not much of a goal scorer. Cunha is the only one you could maybe consider over Casemiro, but even then, like, Cunha's not reliable for minutes and Cunha hasn't been amazing. Anyone could get benched, so it's not safe to go there. And in first place, we have Morgan Rogers, the best of a bad bunch. Now, he's got good games, he's got decent creative potential, he can score from outside the box, he can do a mixture of things, but sometimes his output is really low. Sometimes he can blank, but when Aston Villa have a good fixture run, he tends to turn it up a notch, you know. He's the man with the creative potential, he can score from outside the box against weak keepers. So for me, while I'm not a huge fan of Rogers, I think he's a good player to help you see out the rest of the season, who is also quite cheap, you know, especially if you're looking for midfielders and you can't buy anyone who's got a blank game week 34. He's probably your guy to go for. So yeah, if you're buying a midfielder, these guys in my opinion are the best, but if you can, you should probably wait until next game week. Now the forward options, there are also not many good ones. Barry is not someone I would recommend you buy. We have Watkins just above Barry, only a 6 out of 10. He could maybe be a 7, but yeah, he just looks so off it this season. I mean, the fixtures are good. It's the same with Morgan Rogers. Like, he's not always great, but when Aston Villa have a good fixture run, he could really pop off, turn up and get you huge hauls, especially when he plays home to Tottenham, then away to Burnley consecutively. I do see some points there for Watkins, but around that in the mediocre games, in the grey fixtures, he doesn't look like he's going to be anything special. We then have Recoveries. Now, I talked about him a bit earlier. I actually think this guy is quite viable. With how easy the fixtures are looking, it's very hard to believe that Arsenal's starting striker, who is also on penalties, doesn't score any goals here. I mean, don't get me wrong, that could happen. Arsenal was such a defensive team. But to me, with all these green fixtures, Arsenal are bound to score some goals from open play, I hope, despite their bad form. And I believe Recoveries being the starting striker is the most likely culprit to be scoring these goals. We then have Thiago on a similar level, 7 out of 10. The fixture run for him is a lot harder, but he is a much better striker this season. There's no one surprised by me saying that. And in between the tough games, there are some easy fixtures too. So Thiago, he's still chasing the golden boot. I think he still has a chance of getting it, especially with games like home to West Ham, you know, anything can happen. If you have bench cover for the tough games, it's even better, but I wouldn't say you necessarily need it. And in the number 1 spot, we have the only attacker, you know, midfielder or forward, to actually be rated higher than a 7 out of 10. And that is Brobbey. Now in general, Brobbey is not that guy. He's not amazing. He's not a superhero, but he's got good underlying data. Well, it's all right, not as good as Thiago's. He's got a good fixture run and they pair together nicely, you know. Good data, good fixture run, clinical finisher. You get a good FPL asset. And while I don't think you'd keep him for the entirety of the season, he's great for the next 2 game weeks and you can hold him until game week 38 if you're very limited for free transfers. So yeah, last time I recommended Brobbey, by the way, he was amazing. He scored like 3 games in a row. Some of you will remember that. So, you know, I know Brobbey. We're linked, you know, we've got that synergy. I know when he's going to do well. Anyway, guys, that is it from me. Let me know what you agree with. Let me know what you disagree with down in the comments. If you made it this far, you are greatly appreciated, and I will see you all in the next video.